Well, hey, and thanks for tuning into another episode of the Full Frontal Living podcast, whether you're joining me on YouTube or on your favorite listening platform, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. I seem to be on all of the listening platforms. I'm just so grateful that you're here. And this week we are continuing this series around managing your energy, being responsible for how you want to feel physically, emotionally, and also how your environment plays into that. Because so often, many of my clients get caught up in the circumstances of their lives. And if the circumstances would just change, then they would feel better. And although when your circumstances change, you will feel better. It's about you changing those circumstances versus the circumstances changing. And there is a difference there. So today we're going to talk about the consequences and what happens if you choose to not step into doing this deeper work, if you choose to continue to blame everything outside of yourself as to why you feel the way you feel. And I can tell you, very few of us wake up in the morning and say, gosh, I really want to learn how to feel my feelings today. And I really want to take responsibility for everything in my life. Most of us prefer to stay in that place of being a victim of our circumstances because it means we don't have to be personally responsible for what's going on. And as someone who is uber responsible, responsibility is one of my core values. I can tell you, once you've done enough of this work, some days I'm like, oh, I wish I could go back to just being blind to all of it and not recognizing that, I can create anything that I want in my life because that's how I live my life. So even though I've been a coach for over 2 decades, there were many years where I was absolutely blind to my own garbage. And it took my husband going to rehab and me stepping into what's possible for me from this experience. Like, if this is happening for me, what's here for me? And that opened me up to really discovering how many beliefs and behaviors that I was getting caught in that weren't true, that I didn't have to be behaving in that way, and that I could see the world through a whole new lens. Now, it took, a grenade being thrown on my life for me to wake up to that. And the truth is, most of you need something in your life to happen where the pain gets so intense that you are forced to look at what isn't working and go beyond just the circumstances of your life, right? Could have been easy for me to just blame my hubby. Like, if he just, wasn't using, then I would feel fine. This isn't a me problem. It's a him problem. But I played a role in what was going on. There was a reason why he came into my life, why I attracted that into my life. And I want you to consider, what are you attracting into your life, whether it's people, jobs, what kind of circumstances keep showing up in your life, because you are the factor that ties all of them together. Okay. So we're going to talk about the consequences here. So I just kind of touched on it. If you continue to search for the answers in the circumstances, you will miss the gold in what is really here for you, because transformation starts with you. When you change, your circumstances change. So for those of you who are maybe feeling exhausted all the time because you're working such long hours, you can never seem to get out of the office, or you're an entrepreneur and you're working around the clock because you've got these big goals. You are choosing to do that to yourself. Whereas you can actually decide to set better boundaries around your work hours. You can say no to your colleagues and your peers. You can go back to the scope of your practice, what you were hired to do. Are you overdoing? Are you overgiving? Are you overperforming? And what is the belief behind why you need to do that? So what is it costing you? So this is why we stop looking at, okay, what are the circumstances? So we look at the circumstances that you don't like, but then we bring it back to, how are you playing a role in creating that? And what needs to change in your life? Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. Those circumstances aren't going to change. So even if you leave the job because you're like, oh, it's too many hours, too many responsibilities, yada, yada. If you're an entrepreneur and you're like, you know what, forget it, I'm going to burn my business down, I'm going to start from scratch, your problems will follow you. your problems will follow you. And I know this because I used to chase changing my circumstances. Oh, well, if I leave my marriage, that will fix the problem. Except I left my marriage, I was the problem. So I just went back into old patterns and behaviors. They just keep repeating. That's what happens. Our patterns and behaviors keep repeating based on the beliefs that we're carrying. So if we don't change, if you don't change from the inside, how you think and feel about yourself, your circumstances will never change. They might look different, but it'll be the same thing. So I want you to look at the patterns in your life where circumstances have repeated and repeated and repeated. You're also going to start to notice when you don't start managing your energy better, if you're constantly, feeling exhausted all the time, your health is going to take a dive bomb. So if you aren't already feeling burnt out, you're going to be on the fast track there. And your body doesn't care if you've got a ton of stuff to do. Your body doesn't care how long your to-do list is or the deadline that you have. If you do not make time for wellness, you will be forced to make time for illness. And this can look like a multitude of things. Burnout is very different for every single person. But for women, it impacts our hormones, it impacts our sex drive, right? So now we're not feeling sexy. It impacts weight gain. So women often struggle with weight gain, cravings, massive mood swings. So massive mood swings becomes a problem if you have children. You're constantly yelly at your kids, or you're picking arguments with your spouse, or 1 minute you're happy and 1 minute you're depressed, feeling like there's something wrong with you, crying at the drop of a hat. All of these things come from not taking care of our physical well-being, managing our physical well-being, that energy, so that we can manage our emotional energy better. It's going to cost you a lot of money. This is the reality. So most of us want to bring more money and abundance into our lives. We want to be able to have money to go play and do fun things and renovate our houses and spend time with our kids, all of that. But if your health takes a dive because you're not taking care of and managing your energy, it is going to cost you a significant amount of money to get your health back, whether it's seeing specialized practitioners, whether it's in supplements, you name it. It might be lost hours at the office that you're not getting paid for because you need to take a leave of absence, but it will cost you money. So if you continue to go without slowing down, thinking that the next productivity hack is going to allow you to have more energy, you are sorely mistaken. And again, once you are forced to make time for that illness, it is incredibly humbling as a high achieving, high performing individual. When I hit burnout, I couldn't even get out of bed. I couldn't even roll over without being dizzy. And I love to train. I love to work out. I love being ambitious and driven. And I was so humbled because I could do none of those things. In fact, I remember one of my therapists telling me that I needed to give up weight training altogether and maybe I should swim for exercise. And I started to cry because I was like, well, that's not what I do. That's not exercise. I push myself hard. I grind hard. So my entire identity was based on how much I could do. So when I was forced to relax and take control of my health when I was burnt out, it was so humbling for me. And burnout isn't something you just recover from so that you can go back and do the same things, because what many women do is they end up in this cycle of burnout. They give themselves just enough of what they need to start to feel better, but then they put themselves back in the pattern again. Why? Because they haven't changed their identity around what needs to happen in order to have better boundaries around work, taking care of themselves, all of those things. Okay, so you are gonna lose money and you are gonna lose a lot of time. When I was recovering from burnout, I cannot get those months of my life back. So I'm grateful for them. I learned a lot of lessons, but it is not a path I ever want to go down again. And you are always going to be faced with things in life that create stress. But when you've learned how to manage your energy, you will navigate that stress with so much more ease and compassion. It doesn't mean that it won't feel hard or that your adrenals won't take a hit, but you will have more in the reserve. If you are already running on empty and something happens in your life, where are you going to pull that energy from? So this is why I get so passionate about supporting women, learning what it means to truly take care of themselves and truly take care of their energy, because I want you to be resilient. Resiliency requires energy. You have to have energy to be resilient. So we need to look at all these places where you are just bleeding out your energy for everywhere. So many people, like I said, get into mood disorders like depression and low-grade anxiety. Long-term, again, the implications on your physical and emotional well-being is tremendous. I spent years living in anxiety, but so disconnected from myself, I didn't even know consciously that I was in anxiety, because that was kind of my baseline. And it was so interesting when I pulled myself out of that and I could start to feel what anxiety felt like in my body, and to teach myself how to, I call it turning down the dial. So I would feel anxious and I would say, okay, Lisa, like, is there anything you need to be anxious about in this moment? Yes or no? No, everything's done. I'm good. I'm safe. I'm well. And I had to retrain my body that it didn't need to feel that anxious feeling, because my nervous system was always turned on. It was always on high alert because I was always running at this furious pace. And that had been my whole life. Okay. So your nervous system is here to support you, but you're frying it out all the time if you're constantly living in anxiety and depression. And let's just face it, life isn't a lot of fun when it's kind of like all the time. It's hard to be motivated. It's hard to be inspired. It's hard to be excited when you've got low-grade depression running in the background, which often means so many of you end up at doctors going on medications to lift you out of the depression. But again, and I'm not poo-pooing on antidepressants, but often what I see is people trying to skip over the part around working on, well, what is causing me to feel depressed in the first place? What is happening in my life that I'm avoiding and not wanting to be with? Because the parts of you that you cannot be with, the emotions that you don't want to feel, will run your life. Okay. You cannot outrun yourself. You can't. You can take meds till the cows come home. You can try and numb it out with social media and drinking wine or whatever it is you want to do, shopping, spending money, overworking, perfectionism, you name it. We have all these tools that we as humans get into to not feel what we're feeling. But just like a toddler tugging on your pant leg, it's not going away until you sit with yourself and learn what it means to work through the things that are causing the anxiety, causing the depression, causing the overworking. When you start to become curious about who you are and why you do the things you do, it is amazing what you can discover about yourself. Like, absolutely amazing. The patterns and behaviors that I have become aware of in my own life have truly transformed how I show up. And there was a long period where I felt like I was almost being forced to breathe underwater, because the new behaviors were so foreign to me, because I'd been a people pleaser for most of my life. I didn't like confrontation. I didn't want anybody angry at me. So learning how to stand up for myself, learning how to give myself a voice was terrifying. And I knew the more discomfort I leaned into, what was going to be possible on the other side. I mean, one of the reasons I'm able to record videos now and have a podcast is because I got over the belief that it wasn't safe for me to speak up or be seen on a larger scale. I had an absolute debilitating fear of being seen and being heard. And that kept me trapped for a lot of years. And a lot of it stemmed back to childhood and not believing I was smart enough and yada, yada, yada. We all have so many stories that we're operating from, stories that we picked up when we were just young children. And we've never gone back and looked at them and said, well, what makes this true? Why do I believe this? What is causing me to constantly chase goals? Why do I never feel fulfilled? When was the last time I felt proud of myself? Do I even believe I'm allowed to feel proud of myself? Or is that ego? Don't be a tall poppy. Don't make anybody else feel bad. All of these things cost you your energy, they're costing you your health, they're costing you opportunities, money, time, you name it. Okay. There's an acronym that a coach of mine once gave me, and I've never forgotten it. And the acronym is PAIN. So as I said, I believe everybody has to get to a point where the pain is so great that they can't endure it anymore. Maybe something blows up in your life. Maybe you lose your job. Maybe your kid gets sick. Maybe you get sick. Maybe you crash your car. There's a whole host of things that can happen. Maybe a global pandemic hits and it rocks your world and your belief system. When the pain is there, that is what creates the curiosity. So if you've been listening to this series and going like, wow, what might be possible for me if I actually learned how to prioritize myself, take care of my energy, let go of things in my life that weren't serving me, how might you be able to move out of the pain you might be feeling? Because pain stands for pay attention inward now. Your pain, your emotions are always talking to you. Your body is always talking to you. It's just so many of us have learned to live from the neck up. We have disconnected from the wisdom in our bodies. We've disconnected from our emotions. Most of us don't even have emotional fluency. We don't even know how to name what it is we're feeling. We've become so disconnected, and we're not taught this in school. Yet all day, every day, our body is talking to us through the language of emotions. And when we stop being afraid of what we're feeling, when we learn how to pause, so not even stop and slow down, I'm just talking about learning how to pause and get present to, well, what am I feeling in this moment? This is anxiety. Okay. What is anxiety trying to tell me? What do I need to know here? Or what is causing this frustration? Oh, that person said this or that person said that. Okay, well, what am I making that mean? What interpretations am I giving this? There is so much available to you when you create a different awareness about yourself, when you start to see the world through a different lens. But until you do, until you step into this work, until you allow yourself to get curious, like why you are always feeling tired and exhausted and why life keeps happening to you, and until you step out of that place of being a victim, you will never have enough energy to do the things you want to do. And the whole idea of when this happens, then I'll allow myself to have this and feel this. It's never coming. It is never, ever coming. How many of you told yourself that if you just had all the time in the world, these are all the things you do? And then we were gifted with like 2 years of lockdowns. How many of those things did you actually do that you said you were going to do? Did you take advantage of that time? I believe I talked about this on a previous episode. So the stories you're telling yourself, the when then, keeps you in that loop of doing, busy, chasing, achieving, and verging on potential burnout. So I don't know where you're at. I don't know where your health is at, but I do know that every single woman that I have worked with, all of them are struggling physically with their health. Most of them are struggling emotionally with behaviors that they're getting into, not even realizing that it's the emotions that are driving the behaviors as a way of trying to not feel what they're feeling. And so many of you aren't willing or have not been willing yet to take responsibility for your environment. People, the places, the things, where you're spending your time, how you're spending your time, what you're surrounded by, the clothes you're putting on your body, the sheets that you're sleeping in. All of these things impact how you feel. And so many of you are denying yourself the things you want. You're denying yourself how you want to feel. Because again, when then? I'll buy those new sheets for myself, when I make X amount of dollars, or when I get this thing or that thing. And instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to go out and buy myself some new sheets, you sleep in your bed every single night. Make it a luxurious experience. I specifically designed my room because I was traveling so much. And then I'll wrap up this episode. I was traveling so much, and I love staying in hotel rooms. I love crisp white sheets. I love a beautiful mattress. I love a luxurious room. And I thought to myself, I want, when I come home, I want my bedroom to feel as luxurious and expansive as it does when I stay in these fancy hotels. I love that experience. So when I came home, I gave that to myself. I bought the custom bed. I bought the fancy sheets. I bought the nice duvet. I bought all the pillows. And I give myself that experience of feeling like I'm tucking myself into a nice hotel room bed every single night. And then I went into the bathroom and I changed my bathroom. I put mats down that made me feel like my feet felt nice and soft in these mats that I bought. I upgraded all these small things in my life because they support me feeling really amazing. And that supports my energy, right? That helps me fill my own bucket. And that's what this is about what happens if you don't fill your bucket. So the opportunity is here for you. If you haven't listened to all the episodes in this series, make sure you go back to number 1, was how to protect your energy and how that can change your life. I'm going to continue on with this series because I'm getting really great feedback on it, which I love. And of course, we have our energy audit program launching very, very soon. So make sure you're on the wait list, lisacarpenter.ca/energy, because we're going to be deep diving into all the areas of your life. And it's not about like flipping the table and changing everything that you're doing. It's about creating a new level of awareness around where you can do better. So it's not about getting it perfect, but even if you change 4, 5, even 2 things can dramatically shift how you are feeling and whether or not your energy is like bleeding out of you, or whether or not you are giving yourself energy, whether or not you're prioritizing yourself and how you want to feel. And like I said, it can be as simple as clean sheets, fresh new sheets. It can be as simple as removing an outfit from your closet that makes you feel like garbage because you don't fit in it anymore. Just get rid of it, give it away. Somebody else is waiting to enjoy that. Maybe it's, setting a boundary and saying, you know what, I'm done at 5 and I'm leaving. When I leave my office at the end of the day and I close my door, I do not come back and open it up again and start my day again. I don't. I used to work round the clock, take breaks to feed the kids, to go train. But I would work from the crack of dawn until, way past sundown in the evening, because I truly believed that doing more would help me achieve more. But all it got me was burnout, a lot of stress, but it didn't get me better results. So I'll leave you with that. So make sure you get yourself on the wait list. Thanks for tuning into this episode. If it was helpful, I'd love for you to leave a comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to it, I would love for you to share it with one person who you think might benefit from this episode or this series. That would be so helpful. So have a beautiful day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.